Hey everyone, welcome back to Two Drink Minimum, a podcast where we discuss various life topics over 2 beers at minimum. We're your hosts. I'm Janet.
And I'm Edwin.
And today we are talking about course correcting. Last episode we talked about making New Year's resolutions and the idea of goal setting in general, kind of how, some advice on how to do that, etc. Now we're talking about course correcting if it's not going well for you. And the beer we are drinking is?
We are drinking a Breckenridge Brewery Hop Peak IPA.
Tough
and
to say.
I think course correction is a little weird. I don't even think I know what that means. It's more like, you're not where you want to be and things aren't going well in the plan. Is there another way to say it than course correction? Sounds like a school-related term, like course correction.
I think course correction,
or like a
you got lost.
term or something.
Well, I think, you got lost, like the ship is going the wrong way type deal. Course correct.
If you're like, course correct, what the heck is that? Tell us in the comments below. It smells good. This beer smells real good. What do I know about Breckenridge? I saw the CNN documentary on marijuana being at Breckenridge, and I know they ski a lot, and I know some people who ski there. So I was like, hey.
For vacation, or they live there?
They vacation there.
Okay. Cheers.
I also know someone who lives there, but I'm not sure. Oh, it looks good.
I had too much head, so I got mainly just foam in that one. I didn't pour it well.
Yeah, this is good. Very nice. Nice, soft.
It feels very
creamy.
filling.
I
but
feel
not like in a I'm bloated type of way. Just it feels like a
hearty.
party.
I mean, the picture, if you're on the YouTube, you can see it here. The picture kind of does. It relates to the picture. I feel like I am just like warm in a mountain at the same time. It's pretty amazing. It's really good.
It's a very welcoming tasting beer.
They're doing a good job in Breckenridge over there.
It feels
Shout out to Colorado.
It feels like comfort beer. It's like, has like that night. The head has a really good froth to it. I did tilt the glass to like make it less, but I feel like it naturally is a pretty heady beer, and I like that quite a bit. On the bottle, it describes itself as having complex and aromatic with notes of citrus and pine.
Definitely the citrus pine. Yeah, you could smell the pine when you open the bottle.
6.5% alcohol, or like ABV, but it actually tastes pretty like mild.
Yeah, it
doesn't taste like a very like boozy beer, which is impressive for something that's like a little bit above average. Like 5.5 is probably more of a middle ground ABV, but yeah, it's a good beer.
Yeah. So okay, the course correction / the way I looked at it, or the way I pitched it to Janet here was essentially everyone, this is coming out like late January, so the year's well underway now. 1/12 done or about to be done. So maybe if you were a person who does make resolutions or what have you, maybe it's now a time to be like, okay, how's that going? Have you been going to the gym? Have you been working out? Have you been fighting less with your significant other? Whatever it is, we have enough now after a month. Not to say that either way, like there's been a change, but we have enough to say you're either doing it or you're not. Mm-hmm. And if you're one of those people who doesn't believe in the New Year's resolutions, then maybe this is just hitting you at the right time, and you're like, certain things I've wanted to do. Like if you just can't, Janet and I are people who just finished school a couple years ago, so we know a lot of people who are in that post college education, post school life, and maybe for example, maybe you said something like. If you didn't set goals, but you just hopefully have goals in life. Maybe you said, oh, I'm going to, go out more and explore my, my new town or whatever. And it's been 2-3 years and you realize I kind of, I can name 5 places where I'm usually at 80% of the time. Mm-hmm. Then maybe, you haven't been doing that. Or if you said you're going to be dating more and you haven't been doing that. Or I'm going to save money and you said that 3 years ago and you don't have $1, stuff like that. So it doesn't have to be necessarily for those people
still working on the emergency fund.
For those people who don't have, don't believe in New Year's resolutions, maybe you can just take this moment to self-reflect, or hopefully, if you ever feel like you're falling back, our content is supposed to be evergreen for that reason, where it can work whenever you're feeling down on May. Hey, this is me from the past talking to you in the present. So, hey, it's okay, because of course corrections and those kind of things, you probably might need that more times than now. But this is what a great time to be proactive. If you've only had one bad month, and you can right the ship with little effort compared to
I see a lot of people talking about in March, it seems to be the big like gut check for resolutions. People are like, it's March, who's still doing it? And like,
I think of it as April 1st, because then after March, you got 3 months. See, I guess I look at fractions more. It's a quarter of the year.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, the
first
quarter is over.
Around that springtime, yeah. I see I'll see people post on Twitter and kind of ask that. A few people will ask that question. I know I follow. It's kind of like a slight sidebar, and it relates to a lot of I think episodes we've done, like Surroundings of Greatness, all that stuff. But I follow like the reminders from Kelly Sue DeConnick, which she's a comic book artist, and she has like these little inspirational texts that she'll send out like very infrequently. So it's really nice because it's always a surprise to get a message. It's not like every day. I feel like it's overwhelming if I'm getting daily texts about this one specific thing. But she has little motivational pieces that she'll send out. If you like Google like Kelly Sue DeConnick bitches get shit done, like it'll come up. And she'll send like these little blurbs, and that's one that she usually sends like, hey, it's like March or April or whatever. How are those goals going? It's not, and she'll kind of do what we're doing in this podcast and say, hey, we can still do cool things. Absolutely. I think so often, and I think why this episode is good for us to do, is way too often we just like throw the whole thing away once it's like not perfect. So it'll be like, oh, it's January, it's March, it's April, it's even like June, at any point it'll just be like, well, I said I wanted to read 12 books in the year, 1 book a month, but it's been 4 months and I haven't read anything, so that goal is dead. And like, it is true that your ability to achieve the 1 book a month, if just the frequency, like a consistency, that is dead. That's true. But like, you can still have like a great couple months to end the year out and go into the next year and say, now I'm really going to see it through. So I think too often when we can't hit like the result that we want, we kind of just stop. We just like stop partway through because we know it's not going to be, what we want it to be. Edwin just dropped the notepad that we have. That's why I was laughing. So yeah, and I think we have to make sure, especially too on that, which we'll talk about maybe in a little bit, on the micro level, sometimes you can do that, but you want to be careful too. Like, I know, there are days like me and Edwin kind of had a mad day today. Actually, we were kind of a lazy like start to the day, wasn't really feeling it, And for me today, I was like, what, I'm kind of throwing this day away. I'm just gonna make it like I'm gonna plan a little bit, do some self-care, just chill out, and that's okay to do at times, but you gotta watch out because when you start throwing like all the days, all the weeks away, then all of a sudden
one
you kind of get caught up. We
both really love a lot is Gary Vaynerchuk, and he kind of talks about that. He's like micro speed, macro patience, which is like squeeze everything out every day, but also understand that it's a long road. Game, yeah. So at the end of the day, I mean, nothing you do today is gonna be so brilliant that like life's set. But also, take it seriously, but also understand, hey, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's one day.
Yeah, it's always
don't be too hard on yourself at the same time.
It's always a push and pull.
It's a hard balance because I know too many people who do the opposite. All the day do it again, not all the days. You have to start looking at the data and it's like, well, the truth is you don't do what you say you do.
Yeah.
And you gotta kind of gut check yourself and make sure that you're on top of your stuff. So it's a hard balance. But today we're here to talk about the when you have to do the corrections, when you definitely know, hey, I haven't done it. Like for example, for me, I'm trying to think of one that I've had before that I actually cared about, because I've had some silly ones, right? Which we'll talk about later. The reasons why we might not finish things, but ones that I failed. I guess you can look at, for example, okay, last year I wanted to do more composing than ever, and I still did, but not as much. I kind of had I wanted to do a little more consistency week to week, and I fell pretty short of that. Again, it was better than my other years, so even my loss was a win, but not the kind of win I wanted.
The cheesy shoot for the moon.
Yeah.
It is true.
But I really missed it by a lot.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's not that good.
Well, sometimes you just land on another orb or.
So planet. I failed because I didn't. It was a goal I had, but because my focus was on other things, it was one of the first things to go. Mm-hmm. And we all have those things that are the first thing to go. But if I really cared, it shouldn't be the first thing to go. The first thing to go should be something really light, or you gotta try to make sure you're not planning for things to go. So
yeah.
So that was the first thing to go. So whenever I had a rough week, whenever things were tight, whenever I was falling behind, which is a lot, it left because it wasn't that much of a priority. And then slowly it just wasn't consistent enough, and clearly it did not work. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the reasons I failed. I didn't prioritize it like I said I did. and I was going to, and that the results show that I'm more likely to do other things because I don't do this thing. And
sure.
And you know, it showed in my work and in the results what I got.
And two, like that habit just continuously forms because that's what you're fostering. You're that you like, this is a thing that I don't do. And then it starts to feel too like such a big burden to try to put it into your schedule because it's like fake in your schedule. It's there, but you never really do it, so you never add it in. For me, thinking of like last year's goals, I kind of am having a hard time remembering them concretely, but one that I do remember because it's kind of easy to remember is I've kind of always, pretty much my whole life, wanted to, you know, work out consistently. And I had the goal of doing 3 to 5 times working out a week. Really, my like dream would be like 5 times a week. You know, that's the ideal. But I'm like, let's be real. That's a big ask. Let's say 3 to 5. You know, make it more realistic. But I really didn't do that for the whole year. I had my moments where I was doing well, but for the most part, it was pretty much a failure. And the reason for that, you know, kind of talking about with this portion of our topic, why you might have failed, is similar to Edwin's. So like, it is a new habit for me. I'm not used to working out on a consistent basis. And when I would look at my day, I just really never wanted to do it. And the thing about working out too is like, you know, you have to like have the energy to do it or muster up the energy to do it. It takes energy. So sometimes I know they say like, oh, I work out in the morning and I'm energized for the rest of my day. I mean, sometimes I do feel energized, but other times I just feel sleepy. So, and then also, you know, you work out at night, that can actually disrupt your sleep. So, not that you shouldn't work out at night necessarily, but that, you know, then in the morning, well, I got work, you know, there's so many, it's so easy to make the excuse because there's so many available to you. Like, you know, because you have to schedule out in a really smart way. You know, you have to eat at the right time.
And surround yourself with greatness. Who's going to call you out? Who even does it that you know? It's kind of hard. Like,
right.
You know?
So that was like, I literally was just always like failing at that because I really didn't, I kind of always looked and I was like, I would work out, but I'm too busy. But then also I thought about it. I'm like, well, I mean, a workout can be, because I really started to move towards this model too. I used to be like, if you're not doing 30 minutes or an hour, it's not even a workout. I don't believe that anymore. That's stupid. I'm like, what, I can't run a mile. It's 10 minutes. I mean, I have to shower after, but you have to shower anyway. So I really started to kind of reflect on that and call myself out mentally. And yeah, I finally actually was able to kind of start fostering that. And I'll save that part for later though, for like how to attack your goals, because this is a goal I'm still working on and I think I'm doing pretty well a few weeks into the goal because I started early, but I'll kind of talk more on that later. But that's why it was so easy. I never did it, so I'm like, well, how would it fit in? It kind of reminds me of, there's this little comic of like, it's a joke about video games, but it's like, you know, you have a little block and the guy's trying to fit it into the slot and he has to like take something out. And I think a lot of times with our goals, we feel like I'm already maxing out what I'm doing. We all feel like we're busy in our day, no matter what kind of life you live. You're probably not like, oh, I got all this free time. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you do, but it's probably really rare. You probably still feel like, well, by the time I cook dinner and blah, blah, blah. So I feel like a lot of times when we look at our goals, we're like, how in the world would I fit this in? When, to be honest, I'm already kind of failing at things currently, probably. Yeah. And I think that's a big reason why, you know, you might have failed aspects of January.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, you got to remember, like, kind of the audacity to dream, which sounds really ridiculous, but, like, you've been who you've been your whole life, and depending on how old you are when you're listening to this, you're 18, 20, 30, 40, 50, you know, 25. It's a lot of years, it's a lot of data. For you to just change is hard. Obviously, hopefully, you pick something that you're kind of close to doing. Like, it's not like it's the first time you worked out. You have worked out. I'm a musician. I'm a composer. I compose. So it's not like I picked, you know, water rafting for no reason. Just like, I'm just going to water raft every week. And it's like, I don't know how. You know, no, it's not that. So hopefully you're not picking things that are too ridiculous. That might be another thing, too. You know, you gotta be honest about what you do and what you can do. And if you know, like, it's kind of ridiculous right away, you know, that might be something, you know, you got to watch out for. So hopefully you pick something that's realistic. But if you did, or, you know, you just have to remember, even if it seems realistic, if you haven't done it and it's a goal, it's going to be hard because your body and your routine, you're kind of shifting it all. And we don't like that kind of change. It's hard to force us to do that unless we're getting paid to do it. Because I've seen, you know, that happen a lot. You know, you'll do it if your boss says it. But, you know, your boss says you got to be there an hour earlier or you're fired. I bet you make it. But when you say you got to work out an hour earlier, and it's on you. The thing, and I mentioned this to Janet off the record a bunch of times, but the hard thing about being an adult and being a grown-up and doing things the right way is that many people aren't ready to be the bosses of their own lives. They're not ready to hold themselves accountable, which is why we need bosses anyway, because if you let the workers do it, it's going to be a mess, and there's not going to be like a strict, like, no, this has to get done. It's going to get very loosey. So we need an authority figure to just be like, this is it. End of discussion. So in your life, that's you. So it's very hard. It's easy for you to just be like, you know what? I'll cut you some slack, man. Yeah. You know, you deserve it, man. Or
opposite. You work yourself to death thinking that you're doing something, and then both are bad bosses, you know?
Yeah.
Someone that's too lenient and also someone that's too hardcore. Like, you don't want to be either of those extremes. But finding balance is really hard.
So that's one of the reasons why you have to be careful when you're failing, is that you got to remember that you're making a big shift, and that takes time, and it's not just going to automatically switch from, like, I don't do this thing all the time to now I do it all the time or at a regular basis. It's a very hard thing to do, so you have to know that going in. So sometimes the failure is kind of it could just be the growing pains of, hey, you're trying to make a dramatic change. It's not going to happen overnight. You gotta be patient with yourself.
For sure.
And work through it.
On that note, too, I did a quick Google search. I didn't look through all the things that came up extensively. Obviously, we're just recording right now, but I Googled the classic, like, how long does it take to form a habit? And on average, it's at least 2 months. The lowest number I saw was like, one study from, I don't know, like, once again, I don't know how reputable this website is or whatever, but they said, like, in a recent study, it took anywhere from 18 days to 254 days to form a new habit. So, like, that's a really big, window.
To me, I definitely think 18's nothing. I think you need at least, like, 100 days, probably. You probably need a month, 3 months. Because honestly, I think even that's not enough. I've seen people who do that stuff too, like they go hardcore on something for 3 months and they burn out and they're out. But I would say at least then we can say, okay, there's enough data that you're really starting to make some change, right? Because you could be like, a responsible person, for 3 months and then start going reckless, like, oh, see, you went back to your old ways. I knew one person, and I'm gonna try to be real sensitive with the story here because I don't want them to somehow hear this. I don't think they listen to this podcast, but I want to keep it short. But someone I knew lost a lot of weight. And it was great. They lost, I'm talking like 100 pounds or something. And then within like a year or so, they gained it all back.
That sucks.
Because they had like some bad habits. And and again, they went hardcore and that was great. And then they just gained it all because I'm not sure what happened in their life. I'm not sure like what the struggle was. But clearly they found success. But again, because it was so dramatic and then it reversed the other way, it's hard to keep that weight off, obviously. I don't know much about it, but I do know that's what people say.
And I think that idea of like, readjusting or course correcting, however we want to frame it, really fits into that anecdote you shared too, because sometimes you are doing well, but you don't know what life throws at you, and you have to be able to adjust so that your goal can still be sacred and maintained. Right. Like that person, I know, I can't remember who this was. It might have just been like a Twitter thing that I saw, but I remember I read about like someone who's like, oh, I gained a bunch of weight back, like similar story, because like they're like, dad died or something, and they were grieving, and they were, eating more, and they weren't working out.
Bad habits stick around just like good habits do.
For sure.
And if you're used to eating a certain way, living a certain way, and acting a certain way, it doesn't take much for you to go back.
Kind of like what you said too with the idea of like how old you are. Depending on how old you are, there's so much data on like maybe the negative thing you were doing, and even if you're 2 years of being fit, but you had like 15 of not, you gotta work for a long time to shift that scale. Yeah. Which isn't to say that you should constantly be in fear that you're gonna mess up or something. Yeah. But it's just,
you should be aware
of
your history and what's more likely to happen, right?
You're trying to do a big thing, and it's gonna be hard, and you have to, I guess, kind of be vigilant and kind of like that idea of like protecting your goal and making sure that it kind of stays where it's at.
I think another thing too is we're almost getting to that second section, but too much too fast. You might have, you might have just thought that you could do more than you could. Too many people were like, I'm gonna write a book this year. I'm gonna do a documentary. I'm gonna do a weekly blog. I'm gonna start a Patreon. It's like, whoa.
I'm gonna donate more. It's just too much stuff.
It's too many things. I'm gonna volunteer my time too to my community. It's like, that's all great, and I'm not trying to discourage you from doing all those things. Sound awesome. You got to think about where you're at, where you want to be, and how likely it is. Like, I have ideas that are, I have plans for things 2, 3, even 4 years from now. I'm not a believer in where do you see yourself in 5 years? I think it's a ridiculous question. It's stupid. But I do have some things where I'm like, you know what? This is not the time for this. It goes here because I know, even though I want to do all of it, and I'm going to do all of it, things have their seasons, and you want to make sure you don't bite off more than you could chew.
I actually just created, in my bullet journal, which I talked about in the last podcast, and you also have one, it's basically a planner, but you make it yourself. I just created a section for future goals, and I wrote down some stuff in there because it's stuff I know that I'm not going to do this year. And like maybe there's like a, you know, I'm not gonna say like it's 100%, but I'm pretty sure I'm not doing it this year. But there are things I do want to do. So I have that there to kind of allow myself to think about the future, even as I'm kind of, you know, now. And that way I can look at it. And, you know, maybe if I am killing it this year, I could dip into one of those future goals. But it's a way for me to say, this no longer exists in my head. And now it's tucked away on paper. And I can know that this is going to be for later. But I also won't forget about it. One last thing I want to mention for, like, the why you fail. It's, like, somewhat related to the too much. Okay. It's kind of related to the too much too fast. It's, like, failing to actually plan. And this is, like, slightly dipping into kind of what we get to at the end, which is how do you actually attack your goals. And now that we are course correcting, what do we do next? But I think that's, like, the number one thing that people mess up on, which we did talk about briefly last episode. There's no plan. It's just, like, a nice thought. It's like, I want to, you know, well, so reading right before bed is very actually specific. It'd be like, yeah, I want to, you know, I want to be more, be more fun-loving or something. It's like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean you go, and it, you know, and you want to be careful that you're not, like, planning everything so detailed that it feels like completely miserable, kind of, you know, not fun at all.
When you're making changes, it's hard. Like I said, it's
but
hard.
You need a concrete plan on how, like, you've never done X, Y, Z, or maybe you've, whatever. It's a new habit.
If you never saved money, and you said you're going to save money this year, you're going to have to explain to me how, because you've shown you don't save money.
You can't just say, I'm going to save,
money.
money.
And you've never saved
Even save $1,000, at least more. We have to go as specific as possible.
Yeah.
And the goal itself, like, you know, if you have, like, written down or in your phone or something, it can be, like, sound vague, like, I want to save more, but underneath that, you need to have, like, concrete action steps. And I think a lot of times, that's what happens. Another quick thing, because I know I said the last one was the last one. Oh, just forgetting that you had the goal.
Well, that's what you have to write
down. So, like, you know, write it down, put it in your phone, put it on your wall on a post-it.
And again, with
whatever you need to do to remember, because sometimes we just forget, like, especially if you have a lot of goals or a lot going on in your life. It's easy to say, oh, damn, yeah, I said I wanted to save the money, but I spent it all already. You know, stuff like that, right? Like,
I don't know about the saving one, but I know what you mean.
But yeah.
So, and then that's the thing about, this really irks me, maybe for, like, a pet peeves episode. I hate when people tell me they have a goal or a dream and they don't have any actions whatsoever. Then I'm like, you're just wasting your time. You're kind of bragging about something you don't do.
Well, they would say, like, a goal without a
dream is a wish.
Yes. A goal without a plan
yeah.
is a wish. Yes, there we go.
Yeah, a goal without a dream. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to open a bakery. How? And they're like, well, you know, I'm going to save the money.
I don't know.
When are you going to save the money? Is it this year? Well, you know, I'm going to figure it out. And it's like, you're not going to figure it out. If you were so good at figuring it out, you would have figured it out.
Here's the thing about I'm going to figure it out. Don't put off figuring it out. Don't put off anything, really. You know, that's the ideal. But, like, yeah, why are you're delaying thinking about what it's like, it's so removed, you know?
You might see, and exactly, thinking it out might make you realize, one, you're really far away. How many years? And if you want to do it, you might be like, oh, this is like a 5-year plan. You know what? I mean, I like the idea, but when I really thought it out, I don't like this. And it's like, okay, cool, now you can let that dream go.
You know
and
what?
do what you actually want to do, which is whatever X, Y, Z.
And that's a really good segue into kind of the next section we want to talk about, which is kind of evaluating, I guess, the goals. So, like, you know, is this really what you want right now or what you want at all? And I think in your bakery example, yeah, that's exactly it. Like, sometimes, you know, it's okay for, like, things not to end up being for you, or for you to realize that you don't actually have an interest in something. I think too often we get kind of caught up.
To a level that's of what the dream.
Yeah, like, don't get caught up on what your own original goals are. Like, everything can always change and, like, you know, shift. You have to just think about, you know, is it realistic right now? And then also on that note, for, like, you know, does it make sense right now? Part of that might just be dividing your goals as well. Like, I think some goals need to be done, like, for the whole year. Like, I think if you say, I want to work out, you know, 3 to 5 times a week, like me, you just need to do that. But at the same time, like, one thing you can do too is, like, maybe you want to scale that, you know, maybe it's like, and that's kind of like with my 5 times. 5 is too much. I cannot just like, personally, I know myself, I'm not going to just start working out 5 times a week when I've worked out 0 times a week. So maybe, like, you know, you kind of give yourself those little wins and scale it up. So maybe, like, you might not necessarily even need to abandon your goal, but you might need to create, like, checkpoints to hit on the way towards what your ultimate goal is, which maybe is to, you know, work out 5 times a week, or, you know, cook a certain amount of meals at home, or something like that. Like, and that's kind of related to your too much too soon comment. But yeah, I think that's part of the evaluation process.
And it sucks to... It doesn't feel good to admit to yourself that something isn't for you, even though you want it to
or
be.
that it's a passion project you don't have a passion
right?
for.
And that's the thing.
Episode
I have a passion
2
for a lot
or
of
3?
things. The fact is, at this point, and I want to be careful because I am on record, but at this point, I don't. I have a love and passion for like a few things like architecture and video games and like sports, basketball, soccer, and there's a world where I would be a writer for those things or a journalist for those things or I don't want to make games because I'm not into computers like that. I can barely press record on this thing, so that's definitely not like I can really comfortably say I'm never gonna design or develop a video game myself. I work in video games in the audio side, but there's no way I'm gonna do the production side or development side. But like it's just like that's not the world I live in, and sometimes it kind of sucks to say, hey, that dream is just a dream, because the truth is I got other big dreams that I would rather pursue. Right? That's the thing. It's not that it's just that you can't do it all. Life is too short to be able to. I just don't have the ability to be the world's best, video game composer, jazz musician, instructor, and then I'm gonna moonlight as the best journalist, and it's too much, and I have to pick, and I picked the things I picked, and I'm happy with it. It's tatted on me right here. I love this stuff, and I love other things, but you just have to let it go.
Well, it's
it's just not really realistic.
It's like, I know we're like dropping like all the cliches today in this episode, but it's the classic saying, you can do anything, but you can't do everything, which I feel like, when I first heard it sounded kind of negative.
Let's use the Ron Swanson one. Never half-ass 2 things, whole-ass 1 thing. That's what he told, what's her name?
Leslie?
No, Leslie, yeah, when she was trying to run for that position and also work at the park. He's like, you can't do both. You can't be here at this meeting and then go to that rally.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Though I think...
you gotta have just whole ass one of them, and you want a whole ass.
Well, I think whole ass a couple things, because you can obviously do more than one thing at a time.
Well, that was the whole. No, but that was the point of the episode.
But when it's like really big, yeah, it just depends. Because the thing is, you can have like multiple goals. That's what I'm saying.
Yes. But at a certain point, you have to realize: are you just half-assing everything?
But
are
also,
you just a shitty musician, a shitty writer? You just suck at all of it because you're not focused.
That's so
on,
like macro though. I think on that note.
No, I disagree, because it's about being realistic about what you can do, and if you're stretching yourself too thin because you're aiming for goals that just realistically are not going to happen, you need to decide what you want. And hey, like, do you really want? If you really want to be a journalist, then you can't be.
But that's so, like I said, once again, that's very macro. That's like a big career life thing. I'm talking about like kind of the smaller goals. Like I want to, read and also do yoga. Like I feel like you can do both of those at the same time. Right. That's what I mean.
But you have to see if that, based on the other things in life, maybe one of them just has to get let go, or you have to reassess the numbers of what you decided.
I definitely agree with that. I just want to clarify that. Like I don't think you only need to have one singular goal.
No,
though also. You have to be honest with yourself and know who you are. I mean, you do want to. I feel like I've mentioned this on the podcast before.
Well, if you need course correction, that means you're failing. So you guys got to check time to see what's not working, and is it because you need to buck up, or was the plan messed up to begin with?
Yeah, and I think I think I mentioned this on the podcast before, but I really really love. I have an education background, so I love what. It's from, I think it's from Vygotsky. It's the proximal zone of development, which I know doesn't make any sense. Vygotsky. That's the name of the like educational psychologist that came up with it, or philosopher. I forgot what his term is. I have heard of Freud. I'm familiar with his works. But it's this idea of where learning happens is like an easy way to think about it. So like
you've also mentioned this one on the podcast.
Yeah, that's what I said. I'm like, I mentioned it, but not everyone listens to every episode necessarily, or you might have forgotten or whatever. But it's this idea of like where does learning happen? So there's like 3 circles, and they're all like inside of each other, and one is like what you can do, and then the most outer circle is what you can't do, and the middle one's like what you can do with help. So this isn't exactly like you're necessarily have help with your goals, though ideally maybe you at least have people to talk to about it, and just a way to feel inspired for it. But you want to like hit that in between, like the point of like what you can do with help. That means there is struggle taking place there, but it is not unreasonable struggle. Like you don't want to be on that outer circle, because then you're just failing, and that's just good advice for like life, for teaching, for like, and that's why I like that a lot, because I think it is so accurate to how we should be living our life. You always want to be challenged. Like if you're succeeding at all your goals are too easy. But if you're failing at like most of them, something's wrong, and it could be you. I'm not saying you should always just like bring your goals down to your level, but you need to have like an honest internal conversation, or even a conversation with someone else about it, with someone that you trust to like give you good feedback that's like honest and not just like, oh, it's okay. It's okay, honey. Like,
yeah, no,
you don't need to do anything because I do nothing. I'm whack, so you can be whack with me. You know, you want someone that you trust to be good with your dream.
A piano player today, and they were like, you know, frustrated because they were struggling and it wasn't like perfect. And I'm like, well, that's kind of the point of me being here. I'm like, the reason we're working together is it's supposed to be hard.
Oh,
if you were just doing everything right.
If you do it by yourself, then you wouldn't be there.
We're wasting time. Like, I'm not doing my job because I haven't found something that you need help with. We're just like, you can play them all, then, you know, we're too easy. In a weird way, we're supposed to be failing at every, you know, lesson. It should be failure and figuring it out. And then as soon as we figure it out, we go back to failure. That's the whole point. That's the cycle. So, yeah, if you're accomplishing everything, you're probably limiting your growth. You're better off pushing. Well, let's push then. Where's your limit? What's the max you could do? Let's find it. Maybe we're halfway there because you got a special gift.
On the note of that Gary Vee stuff, where we both like Gary Vee, from his, it was the book called Crushing It, the second one, the one Megan was listening to.
Crushing It. It's not his second book. It's like sequel to Crush It.
Right, sequel to Crush It.
It's like his fourth book.
It's called Crushing It, right?
Crushing It, yeah.
Yeah, on Edwin's girlfriend / like our roommate, you know, we all live together. She's been listening to the Gary Vee audiobook, which I've already heard, but now I'm kind of rehearing bits of it because she'll play it a lot. And I loved his comment on, you know, kind of the value of failure. And he said, like, you know, I don't think these are the exact numbers, but he's like, you know, you're better off, like, doing, like, 10 things, succeeding at 5 and failing at 5, then you are
3,
right, I got the numbers wrong. Then you are just, like, succeeding at those 5, right? The numbers wrong.
Yeah, he said 3. He said you're better off trying 10 things and succeeding at 3 than trying 3 and succeeding at 3.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
then just succeeding at 3.
Yeah, and 3 for 3 is not as good as 3 for 10, which sounds weird. But it's like, the thing is, the innovation happens there. You know, that's kind of everything. Like, when you really think about life, like that, the people who have the best fashion sense go for it. They get outrageous.
So congratulations on failing, maybe. They miss not really. On that stuff, in a way, perhaps.
You know, I mentioned before I like video games. The reason I think I love video games so much is not because I pick the top 3 video games that came out this year that it's for sure I'm gonna have a great time and I play them. The reason what I like about video games is kind of doing the zag. I'm picking the indies, I'm picking $5 games, I'm playing like 15 of them, and 8 of them sucked, but 4 of them were really amazing and really cool experiences that gave me something super unique. The only reason I found those 4 was because I was willing to take a chance on the game that was called, like, you know, Silky Slime Trait Runners, and then I'm like, actually, that was brilliant, you know, and then this and that. That happens from taking chances.
Super One More Jump.
Yeah, Super One More Jump, games like that.
Like, game.
That's what that is. Same thing with music. You don't get innovation by just saying, oh, I'm going to look at the top record and just emulate it. That's part of it. You should be looking at the top record. You also should be looking at the indies, what's happening in your scene. Like, that's what cultivates creativity and something just out of nowhere. It comes from trial and error. If you're just succeeding, then that means you're limiting what you're able to do. You need to push a little bit more. But more so, again, if you've been failing, because this is more of a failure podcast,
right?
You have to think about, okay, is that what you want? Reassess kind of how you've ranked things.
I think also...
And hold on. And then you have to decide, you know, if you really want it, because there are seasons for different things, and sometimes it's just not the time to do that. You know, you in our meetings a couple years ago, you decided that, you know, to
the poetry thing again.
And that was, you kind of fought back on that a little bit, but, you know, the thing was, at the time, you know, you can speak to it, obviously, but it's been consistently, so that's why we do the monthly meetups, month after month after month. It was weighing on you. It was negative, and it was not even, like, barely missing. It was, like, none. Like, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0. And it was like, let it go. It's time for it to die. I know you want to write, but I don't know. Show me you could write, and then we could talk about it. And even though, you know, you definitely pushed back for a while, you know, eventually you were like, yeah, okay. Because, you know.
Well, I mean... I did push back, but I think at that meeting I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Because I'm like, well, I wasn't... It was easy.
I don't recall that being... Like,
well, the thing is, it was easy for me to give it up because I wasn't doing it anyway. So I was like, well...
Well, it did suck, I remember you being like, no, well, I want to do it. I'm like, but you're not doing it.
Yeah, because I did want to do it.
It wasn't a huge fight or anything.
And
it was
still,
like a 5-minute
You know what, that reminds me, I have to add that to my future goals because I still do want to do that.
Right. And I still think you should do it sometime down the road.
Yes, but now is not the time. And even this year, I might dip in a little bit again.
And I still gave you, again, we're independent people. I'm like, hey, if you want to defy my advice, I mean, go write. But you haven't written even when that was the advice.
Can you give me another beer from the fridge?
So yeah.
And then what I want to add to some of the points you made, Edwin, was, you know, we're talking about, like, you know, is it the season? Is it what you want right now? I think it's also not just what you want right now, but is it what you want most right now? Because here's the thing, like, you obviously want everything on your list, right? Because that's why you wrote down, like, you want to, you know, learn how to rollerblade and, you know, dance more often and listen to a new album every week or whatever you have on your list, or, you know, obviously you do want all those things. So I think maybe the better question is to ask is like, where do your priorities lie? And maybe kind of start to like scale down in a sense. And what I mean by that is like, and now we're kind of dipping a little bit into how to attack that and be successful. Is sometimes like, you know, like for me, for instance, like we talked in the last podcast what all our goals are. We didn't list all of them, but we kind of I showed like my page, and it's very long, you know, and Edwin's is like pretty lengthy as well, even just for like this month. But like breaking it down into like, you know, what's the thing you want most of that? Let's get those things working, you know? And then after we get those things working, maybe let's add in the other bits. And by the end of 2019 or whatever year you guys are listening to this, then, you know, in an ideal world, we'll now be firing on all cylinders. And realistically, will that happen? I mean, maybe. But also, hopefully, if you succeed at everything, you add some new things, you know, and really start to, like, branch out and continue to push yourself into being a better person, a more fulfilled person, a more diverse person, a more well-rounded person, whatever you're kind of shooting to accomplish. So I think that's kind of the question, because obviously I realized that now. I was like, is it what you want right now? It's like, it probably is what you want right now, but is it kind of what you can attain? No, probably not. So what's kind of realistic?
Well, we mean, is it what you want, as in like that's where your energy goes? Like, if you really wanted it, you'd be doing it, and there probably is because you have other priorities that are more important. So it's not like, just like poetry, you really love poetry, but if you really loved it that much, that's what you'd be doing. Your focus is other things. Your focus is your journalism work. Your focus is trying to work out. You know, doing other tasks, because like you said, it's not that you're being lazy, it's just that you have other things that at this point are just more important. That's just a fact. Right. There's no way you can deny that you rising and growing your career is less significant than the poetry is. Like, you've already picked, so you have to be honest with that and be like, is it really something worth fighting for right now, or is it just like, hey, you know, we'll get to it, we just need to put it in the back burner. Some stuff is just like back burner. Yeah, because I love sports and video games, but that's not what I want to do. So I mean, I could do that today right after this podcast, but I'm not going to, because that's not where my priority goes. Yeah. It's not what I truly want. If I truly want it, I mean, again, we're adults. Too, I can just do it today.
And I think spinning the failure is a positive. Like, you know, hopefully you didn't fail at everything, right? Hopefully. Or you had some success, maybe not the success you wanted, but like a level. Yeah. Hopefully. But even just looking at that, like one reason that we do the monthly meetings isn't just to like, oh, like, you know, now you can feel bad because you, like, didn't get your goal, or now you get called out. I mean, there's an element of that. Not the feeling bad part, because I don't usually, like, I just don't feel bad about myself like that.
Sometimes I'm not looking forward to it when I didn't have a good month.
Yeah, or I'm just like, not that I'm necessarily like, oh, you're going to get rung out, but it's more like the reason I don't look forward to it when I have a bad month.
No one wants to show, I mean, because especially people that have never
Well, it's kind of like now I have to own.
I literally tell you what I wanted to do, and I tell you what I got. So I have to give you the score. Yeah. So that makes it bad.
Well, it's kind of like, you know, you have to reflect on something that was a negative experience for you, which I guess is, you know, not something I would look forward to, but
you're like, I wanted to save $200 and I saved nothing.
But
it's
in
like,
it, yeah,
that's how we say it.
It is, yeah.
And then we go into, well, how will next month be different? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and we actually kind of do what this podcast is. So we talk about like some of the struggles we might have had, and then we either pitch our plan, or we ask the people at the meeting, here's why I didn't do it. Give me like some feedback on what I should be doing to avoid these pitfalls. But the thing I was gonna mention was, in addition to like kind of, I guess, a call out moment, it's also data collection. Like, I think looking at how does the end of January look can help you plan for February, because maybe the reality is, you know, the data speaks for itself, kind of like Edwin was saying, where it's like, if you wanted to do it, you'd be doing it, or if it was your main priority, you'd be doing it. So what things did you let fall aside? And, you know, you can kind of decide, like, do I want to pick it up and say, no, I'm going to do this? Or do I want to say, you know what? I'm going to put it on the back burner. I'm not going to necessarily even give it up for the year or for the month, just for a little while, and I'm going to get to it, maybe like even tiering your goals. Like, this is a phase 2
Yeah, well, I have those tiers, you know? For my stuff. I mentioned in the other podcast, me getting my music on Spotify and stuff, it's just, again, there's too many things going on. It's going to be a financial hit. Not a huge one, but still one. Mm-hmm. And I have other bills coming up in the next 2-3 months. So that's something it would be ridiculous. Maybe don't do something like that where you're like, I'm going to put that on for the first month. It's like, well, with all the other things, like, is that really possible, or do you need to wait? So sometimes some things are, especially when they're small like that, you know, you have to look at your goals and see what's something that, you know, can wait later, and what's something that, no, I need to do it now because I need to nurture that habit, and it's a long-term thing. No, I don't need to nurture a habit for putting my music on Spotify. I just need to put it on there. So because
sometimes, and everyone forms their goals differently. I know some people that never do, like, we kind of do more of the sometimes to-do list goals. Yeah. That are very, very quantifiable, but some of them might be more vague. But even the vague ones, you should try to make them quantifiable, because or else you can't really see how you're doing on them. Which I guess kind of moves us into maybe like how to attack your goal now that you kind of know what's going on.
Okay, I'm failing. You asked me if I want it. I still do. How do we attack it? Go.
So you need to see, well, one, why did you fail? You need to evaluate that individually. It's going to be different for everyone. It is likely one of the things we named. It might be something we didn't name. And you have to kind of decide how to, okay, two things you kind of have to ask yourself. One is this an quote-unquote, was this a one-off occasion or a quote-unquote ongoing problem or challenge, if you want to frame it a little more positively? So by one-off occasion, I mean, like, let's say it's saving money. I wanted to save $50, $100, whatever, but my tire blew out or something like that. That's a one-off problem that, I mean, it still kind of sucks that you failed it, but that doesn't necessarily tell me that you can't save, because clearly something surprising came up and that was outside of your control. But was this like I didn't save because I don't know, it was, I don't know, someone's birthday and I was just like, I don't know, was it something that was kind of more on you? Like, was it inside your circle of control? Because also, like, people always use that, we have this beef with Maggie because she talks about saving a lot, where it's like, oh, well, it was, Stacy had her baby. It's like, you knew though, like, you have to plan for your life. So yeah, if it's stuff like that, so that's one thing to ask yourself. And then for, so you want to identify the problem or challenge you faced, and then ask yourself, well, what's going to make next month different? So in the example I'm using with a tire, well, my tire's not going to blow out, so I should be, good. But so it's more of your habit. Okay, well, you failed to plan. It seemed like, you kind of identifying what caused the problem. In the example I gave, it's like, I didn't plan out my money properly to accommodate these, like, higher expenses that I have. So then maybe it's like, okay, well, then maybe it's looking at where are you spending your money?
Yeah, eat out too much,
what's realistic for
go to the bar too often.
How are you planning on even going about your savings? Are you doing it per paycheck? Are you using an app? Are you, do you have really like a set, like, you want to get as detailed as possible with your set of actions. I think the big thing is really like planning the work and working the plan is like the key to really everything. So I would say that's the number one thing I would say for how to attack it. The second kind of chunk of advice I would give is, if it's something that you really want to do, but you just keep kind of failing at, or, I mean, it's hard to say keep because it's January, right?
Well,
but we don't know who's listening.
Might be listening, like,
And I'll use an example for me. For me, I really want to, this is like, I always fail at this, and we'll see how 2019 goes and January goes. But I've been wanting to learn a song on the guitar for a long time. I like music a lot. Sorry, yeah, on the ukulele. I like music a lot. I think it would be like really fun. It's not screen based, and I like to seek out hobbies that aren't screen based. I spend so much time working on my computer, and that's something I failed in 2018. I'm gonna be honest. We're 11 days in at this point, and I have not played yet, and I'm like planning on doing it tomorrow and Sunday because I said this was the week that I'm gonna do it, etc. But what I'm planning on doing for that. Everyone's laughing at me right now if you're not watching on YouTube. But what I'm planning on doing for that, when I have a goal like that where it's an easy one for me to throw away. The reason this one's easy, it's not career-based. It's not going to better. No one's, kind of like, not that I do things for vanity, but it's not going to have, like, intense positive effects that I'll notice right away. It probably will be good for my life, but, So it's easy for me to throw that away. That's something I know about myself.
You can't be a big-time video game journalist if you don't do a musical project.
Oh, yeah, right? But so that's something that's really easy for me to throw away. It's something else to look at. If it's something you want to do, but man, you be chucking that first sign at it. You don't even got to act like, I don't feel like it's right out of time. That's me for playing the ukulele. So what I do, even though that's not a big deal, like no one's going to care. My boss won't mind if I don't play my ukulele. It's not going to affect me. Sometimes I put that at the top of my to-do list. So I have that marked in red for tomorrow. I'm like, what?
One of my,
before I do the stuff that I need to do, that I know I'm going to do, or that I care about doing, I'm going to do this thing that feels kind of arbitrary, but I know I want to do it.
Well, my teachers told me, when you have a, list of,
the frog?
Huh?
The frog?
No, I don't know.
Okay, never mind. But, like, eat the frog, first thing you do, or whatever, make it the hard thing.
Well, yeah, I guess so. They said, like, I mean, you don't relate to this because you went to a college that only had one course at a time. But for us college that had multiple courses and you have lots of work to do, you're wondering, well, what do I do first? And like, how do I tackle it? And one of the strategies a few of my teachers said is, do the one thing you can't stand that you hate right away. For a couple of reasons. One, you hate it, so just get it out. Let's rip it off like a Band-Aid right off. Two, it feels good when you get rid of it. And 3, now all that's left is progressively less hated things.
Yeah, and I think,
So,
and that can work for, obviously I don't, hate this, but I think it can also work for things you've been putting off.
Right, so just take it out.
So just do it.
If you're really like, is it eating you up inside? Well, then the answer's simple. Let's start there. And let's get rid of it. Right? I haven't worked out all week. Well, then why don't you start the day working out? Mm-hmm. And here goes my other thing. Because for the holiday attack, mm-hmm. This is gonna be, this is us in the podcast. You're gonna understand my style. But again, like the Gary Vee thing, he says audit your time. If you have the audacity to have these big goals, you have to understand what that comes at a price of. And, hey, I love Netflix. I pay for the subscription, and I love watching it. But at certain times...
Yeah, I watched a lot of Friends today.
Yeah, I mean, I watched Bird Box, too, I was there. But at the end of the day, I'm a musician, and musicians play music. Musicians work. Period. That's the difference between a professional and not. I have big goals with that stuff, so I have to work on them. Sometimes I want to watch the Laker game, and I choose not to because I'm like, LeBron ain't paying my bills, man. I gotta get my stuff done, and I have bigger dreams. I'm not gonna lose them because I watched an April Laker game. I'm not gonna do that. Maybe the NBA Finals, but I'm not gonna. It ain't the NBA Finals right now, so I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
Everything has a season, right? So I have to pick. I'm like, I already watched the game, but you know what? I'm just gonna miss it because I gotta work, man. And I think sometimes, again, the gut check. You haven't been this person for a reason. It's tough. It takes grit. It takes guts. It takes courage. It takes discipline. Are you going to be disciplined? After work, you're tired. You need to work out. And instead of sitting on your fucking ass, you get your fucking ass up and move. Are you really going to be good enough to do that? Are you tough enough to do that? Are you going to keep going when it's time to go? That's the difference. And again, no one's going to push you but yourself. No one's going to judge you but yourself. Unless you really have some tough friends like me who are going to tell you, hey, man,
you're whack.
If you really want to do it,
you're canceled.
Shut the hell up and do it. Or, again, I already told you why you failed. I asked you if it's what you wanted. If it's what you want, then fucking do it. Yeah. The fuck up.
I feel like you laid it on so.
Yeah. No, at the end I got
literally you just laid it on.
Again, I gave you an out. I said, "Is that what you really want?" You said yes. Okay, well then show me. Don't do anything else. You're gonna have to sacrifice friend time, party time, tickle time, Netflix time, sports time. It's gotta go away because you told me this is what you want. This is what you want. Then show me it's what you want and do it.
Wow. Okay. So one thing on that note too, and I talk to everyone about this constantly off the podcast, on the podcast, just all the time. It really blows my mind. And I'm saying this as someone that totally struggles with goals, fails all the time. That's also kind of, like we said earlier, a level of the point, to an extent, you need failure to be successful.
Absolutely.
You need, I know it's like Nike slogan, but you really do just need to do it. And I was, I listened to a lot of podcasts that can also and when those are other, I guess, things for how to attack it. I think nurturing, kind of like surround yourself with greatness point, nurturing the mindset and really kind of just making this you say you're about it, be about it in a lot of ways. I do a lot of things that help motivate myself and get those habits forming. I think the other thing too, I was following, once again, that's why you want to follow successful people, find good.
Also, you
need to find all the good
you need
stuff.
To find people who've done it. I'm not trying to be funny, but let's say I'm gonna try to make up a scenario. Let's say you wanted to open the bakery shop, right? I think I'm a really good person for understanding goal setting and goal achieving. I've done a lot of, not to be not gonna be shy. I've done a lot of really amazing, super hard things. Many because I put myself in that situation, but still, I've done some really hard stuff, and I can work and cut out everything and show you it's what I want. But at the end of the day, I've never opened a bakery shop. I don't own businesses like that. And there are certain people, a lot of people in bakeries, that are better at asking that question.
Yeah.
And you need to, and again, don't just take your uncle and your brother and your shit-talking cousin's advice. If you want to be a baker, you should probably talk to bakers. And they will be able to give you someone who, if you, build a friendship and you extend the olive branch, you'll be amazed how many people are actually willing to help you. You need to talk to the people around there. If you want to attack this, talk to people who already attacked this. If you're trying to be a person who goes to the gym a lot, talk to someone who goes to the gym a lot and works out a lot and tell them, hey, I need help. I'm struggling. How do you do it? And then you can start getting some data and seeing what works for you.
Yeah, I've gotten so many great nuggets from different. This is just for myself. I wrote a little note on a piece of paper. From just different podcasts, people I follow, just so many different avenues. And that's the beauty of the internet, right? So one thing I want to mention is, like, I was following, like, I think Grace Fit UK. It's, like, an Instagram account, fitness person in the UK, etc. And she mentioned, like, someone asked her, like, how do you work out when you don't have any motivation? Which is a very common question, and I think fits to a lot of the goals. And she said, you can't just work out when you're motivated, because then you're not going to work out. You have to just do it. And I think just do it is really just, like, you know, I like I mentioned, I tell Edwin constantly, like, it so blows my mind that, like, really the answer is to just do what you say you're going to do, and then you'll be fine. But it is so hard to muster up the will to do it. So, yeah, listening to podcasts has helped me a lot. Like, one big thing I have as a goal is being, like, having a more clean space, like, in my room and in the apartment at large, because I feel, you know, because I want that, and two, the more I learn about the idea of, like, cleaning and being organized, the more I hear and start to understand the benefits of, like, your mind is more cleared up. You'll have, like, a time. I talk about those screen breaks. I can, you know, zone out and just clean. And also, if I clean all the time, I will never have to do, like, for me, I have that, you know, oh my God, this thing looks terrible. Let me spend 2 hours dusting and cleaning and reorganizing just to make it trash again and do it again next weekend. Like, I don't want to spend my free time, like, cleaning. Like, I want to just make that a habit and really foster it. So, like, I'll, like, listen to, like, a bunch of, like, different elements of that. But one thing that now I feel like I kind of lost my train of thought. I wanted to kind of drop a quote, but I don't really remember what it is. But the point is just to, you know, just to do it. I was listening to, like, the Mile Health Show podcast, and they mentioned, like, one thing that was cool, because once again, language shapes how you act so much and how you think. Like, the way you talk is how you, like, think and work. And on that note, like Sean from the Mile Health Show said, like, I don't have a to-do list. I have a just do it list. Because when I wrote to-do list, it was kind of like, I don't know, I'll get to it. It's like, just do it. Just do the thing. Like, you know, and do it right away, like, as soon as you see it. And actually cleaning a lot more. Like, I've basically, all of 2019, I've cleaned a lot every day, like, here and there. And it's been really good, and it's helped me, like, kind of commit to the idea of, like, just tackling a thing. So it's like, you know, when I took out a lot of times I would take out the trash, I would just kind of leave the bag there and then let my, like, dad or somebody.
Taking out the trash.
Well, yeah. I would, like, I would change,
trash.
the trash bag out, but I wouldn't walk it down. Because I'm like, oh, someone else will do that. And someone else will do that and are fine doing that in my apartment. But at the same time, just, you know, do it now. Why are we waiting? You know, why are we leaving all these things? Just do it now. And the more I've started doing that, it's really, like, bled into also other aspects of my life. So sometimes, too, oddly enough, this sounds, like, pretty weird, but sometimes you have to make how you do anything is how you do everything. Sometimes you actually have to, I think, make extra goals to maybe be the person you want to be. Because, like, maybe working out means I have to now wake up earlier. Like, maybe and that's kind of where the planning comes in. Like, for me,
sacrifice. Like, you have how to take it. Like, hey,
what's, like, where
that's
the
what
steps,
it costs, like, in your life. I'm sorry.
What does it take?
If that's not enough for you, then it's not what you want, and you have to admit it.
The other thing, this isn't the thing I had forgotten, but one really core thing that I heard. Come on, Edwin. You guys should really check out the YouTube version of this because it's pretty funny. One thing that I loved from, it was a running podcast I was listening to. It was Rogue Running, really early episode. He was talking about, like, missing your long run. And he's like, well, if you miss the long run because, you know, you're sick, or maybe you really were just so overwhelmed, you know, that it actually was, you're like, you know what, this week, and you mentioned that too, sometimes you do have to take the L, sometimes, like, you know what, this week I gotta focus on my energy on this one project. Once it's done, it's cool, but you gotta be careful that you make that a habit. Or, like, you know, he had, like, oh, family came into town, whatever the thing is, if you left, you know, in your heart of hearts, when you're, like, well, you kind of have to get practice at this, but if you're good at it, you can tell when it's legit and when it's not. Yeah. Some people are a little too lax, but, you know, and he's like, and if you just missed it because you didn't feel like doing it, because he was talking about, like, should you make up your long run, and he's like, no, don't do it, because if you missed it out of laziness, then you don't deserve to be the athlete that you say you want to be. And that really stuck with me because I feel like that's all goals. Like, you know, if I say I want to play the ukulele, if I say I want to, you know, run a certain amount, or I want to clean the apartment, and I'm not doing what I need to be doing, well, then I don't deserve to have that result that I desire so much because I'm not putting in the work. And I'm like, yeah, you know what, you're right. And that really made me want to step up in, like, all aspects of my life. So that's other things to look at too. Like, how can you infuse positivity, good vibes? I now remember the thing I was going to say. That show that Maggie made me watch, that was, like, the cleaning show.
Tidying Up or something like that?
Yeah, you guys, if you're listening to the podcast in the modern era in 2019, January, then you're probably going to know it's, like, Marie something or whatever. But her show, one thing that she mentioned that...
It's called Tidying Up with Marie Kondo?
Thank you.
Kondo, yeah.
One thing, I actually wasn't really a big fan of the show just because I feel like I didn't really get a lot out of it. But one thing that was really nice...
Pen mean to you?
Yeah, do you feel... like joy or whatever. One thing I got out of that I actually did really like just from watching one episode is she had mentioned like one way to help form the habit of cleaning is to like when you do an action like you're not gonna be like I'm not gonna throw my jacket on the bed and just leave it there, I'm gonna put it hanging up. She's like, think about how you felt when you hung it up and when it was done and when you accomplished it. And that's kind of what you mentioned with the when you'll feel good when you get the thing that you've been putting off or that you hate done. Like, remember that feeling. Do what you need to do. Write it down. Like, you gotta find your own ways to, like, even though I think Grace Fit UK is right, at the end of the day, it can't just be motivation-based because motivation will not be there all the time. Like, it just won't. But at the same time, like, find ways to, like, amp yourself up and say, yeah, like, this is something I want to do. I feel good when I do it. And, like, own that and hold on to that because that's going to help carry you through those, like, non-motivated times. Because you remember, no, I know how I felt when I did this. And you're going to chase that feeling again and kind of, foster that habit. So that's, those are kind of some big messages I want to kind of get out there for, like, how to actually attack your goal. If you're like, no, I want to do it, I failed, but, like, how can I? And those are the things I would mention for that.
Yeah, well, I think those are good ways to attack it. I think that pretty much wraps it up here. So let us know how things are going in your 2019 goals or beyond. And if this helped you, hopefully it did. If it didn't, if you have any questions about how can I, like, maybe you have a specific event where you feel like even with all that information, I still got a couple questions. We're definitely here to help. We're definitely here to foster conversation. That's what the conversation's about, is fostering conversation. So let us know what we can do to help. I'm the tough, loving one, and Janet will be a little softer if she needs to be. But we want everyone to achieve the goals that they set, and hopefully, if you've been stuck a little bit or struggling a little, this can kind of help you realize whether it's something you should even do, and if it is, hey, there's buck up time, and we got to work on ways to attack it. So hopefully, you attack it well and get the best life you can.
For sure, and I think just kind of like to add one extra nugget because I think sometimes either from probably people listening or even people that just are around you, sometimes I think people think that you're like, oh wow, Edwin's like so intense, like he's kind of an asshole, whatever. I mean, he kind of played it up earlier in the podcast, but to be honest, I mean, once again, like that harsh quote of like, you don't deserve to be who you say you want to be, I think that's really true. I mean, like if you have to be really careful, because I know a lot of people that they say they have this goal, whatever, and they always come up with, you gotta make sure, is this like a real issue that had popped up, or is this an excuse?
I'm a no BS guy.
You really have to learn how to, well, the thing is, like, kind of on the tough love thing, you really have to identify, like, when are you actually just making an excuse, and really reflect on that, because too often, well, I was too tired from there's always gonna be something making you tired. There's always gonna be, that's why I said, like, yeah, your tire blows out, and that's why you didn't save the money. That's a reason. That's a real reason that this failed.
And we'll see next month. Maybe
yes,
have
exactly.
another one. So, but I'll keep it on notice.
And something that you might want to, if you're not, maybe you're having a hard time identifying, like, well, I'm not sure, is it an excuse? Am I just being lazy? Really write, document, and you'll start to see the pattern. Like, every month, am I swamped? Well, then I guess you don't have the time, or you don't want to make the time, rather, to do what you say you want to do. And hey, if that's your reality, then maybe that's a goal that you just throw away. But, like, what you don't want to do is end up in that in-between. Because here's the thing, too. Like, I feel like, when you have too much failure, kind of like I said, you go too high in that circle, or in the outer circle, now you're just going to feel shitty about yourself all the time because you're always failing. Like,
I'm frustrated. Why isn't it working?
You're better
doing everything,
narrowing down and getting, like, you want a healthy amount of W's and also, like, a couple L's thrown in there just because you are pushing. So you really got to be careful with that, too. Like, and kind of try to get a little bit better than you are, and maybe you're still kind of like, not to be bogus, but maybe you're still kind of whack, but better and like still like holistically maybe whack is good. Like as long as you're getting better, that's good. So work on doing that, on getting better, whatever that means for you. And it looks like a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but just, be real with yourself. And because, you do, even though I said you don't deserve to, like, whatever, I think everyone deserves to have, like, feelings of accomplishment. They should get that in their life. So don't get in your own way of getting that, because it's really important to have. So that about does it for this episode, guys. Like Edwin said, leave comments, tell us your struggles, tell us your goals, your successes, your tips, anything related to this episode. And then we will see you guys on the next one.
Bye.